Welcome to the West Ham Voice. Well, Chris Skull interviewed Nuno today. Well, it came out on the official West Ham website today about aspirations for next season, looking forward to the challenge, etc. And one of the highlights that came out of the interview is that only a few days after the window opened for season ticket renewals are already at 60% renewal rate, which is a massive show of faith to Nuno, to West Ham, and a massive show of the hunger for West Ham fans to get behind the team, to get behind the challenge that comes with trying to get promotion back into the Premier League at first attempt. And I think that's a pretty decent response from the West Ham fans after the window opened only last week. 60% renewal rate already. Now, many suspected that a lot of fans would just walk away after relegation. That would have been the final straw for an awful lot of fans. And we know over the past sort of 10 years since being at the London Stadium, that renewal rates have not been, they've been decent, but not always at, there's fans have been walking away. And I kind of suspected, and I think many of us did, suspected that with relegation, that the renewal rate will be severely hit. Doesn't seem to suggest so. And there's a long way to go for season ticket renewals to happen. I know there was an incentive if you renew by the 1st of June, you'll get an extra 3 points on your season ticket. And I know that's passed, and that may have had an influence on many fans renewing, but nonetheless, it's pretty good. Now, when I look into the interview that Chris Skull had with Nuno, it kind of like part of the course really, it didn't really go into a lot of fine detail. And no one really expected it to happen. Chris Skull lightly touched on transfers, but there was no talk about who might be coming in, who we might be targeting. Nuno just suggested that there's a good foundation for us to get back into the Premier League. That everyone was focused on that particular ambition, and that was the main focus of, as he put it, all the staff at the club and all the players. But he didn't name, and then he was quite specific there then when he turned around and he said, it doesn't matter about the names on the shirt. What he alluded to was whoever's going to throw on a West Ham shirt, it's going to be very, very clear as to what the ambition is, what the target is, what the aim is. So I would have liked there to be a bit more probing and a bit more honesty about the players that may stay or go. But Nuno seems to be suggesting that the foundation is good. You could read into that whatever you want. Now, I know we've been seeing various comments from players about their futures or lack of comments. The latest being Thomas Souček, who said, I'm with the international squad, the Czech Republic squad, focusing on the World Cup, and that's his ambition for the next month. And then talk about domestic football can only happen afterwards. Crescencio Somerville put out a message that sort of suggested that West Ham shouldn't be in the Championship. We should be back where we belong and the work starts here, or whatever it was he said, seeming to suggest that he might be part of next season, but I don't think anyone really expects him to be so. We're seeing the rumours, and they are only rumours, that Man United are about to make a bid for Matías Fernández, and yet there's now competition from Arsenal, of all clubs, and PSG, and apparently Matías Fernández's preference is Man United, and who could blame him, to play alongside his boyhood favourites of Bruno Fernandes. How old? What's the difference between the age between them? But anyway, you know what I mean. So we're getting a lot of these stories coming out, but yet Nuno's come out with something in a rather sort of confident tone. Now, you'd expect him to. You're not expecting him to go, well, half a dozen of my players are leaving. But he seemed confident. He seemed pretty assured as to what's going to happen next season. And I think he knows that we're going to lose a number of players, but who we're going to lose, I guess we'll only find out when the transfer window opens on the 15th of June. One thing is of interest is the loan situation at Championship football clubs. There's no limits. You can get as many loans in as you want, both from English clubs and from abroad. Now, given our financial situation and that we've got to sell a few players to make up the shortfall of the losses that we've had, 104 million, I'm just beginning to wonder that maybe, we might sell 3 or 4 players and maybe look at loaning players. Now, the obvious loan market or the areas of loaning players is going to probably be the Premier League. We might be looking at clubs and players who have come up. I can't remember the name of a Sunderland striker who helped Sunderland get back up but hardly played in the Premier League, and players like that who've come up with promoted clubs who are not getting a lot of game time. Sorry about that. Not getting a lot of game time, who may be candidates to come on loan to West Ham United next season. Do I expect there to be quite a few loan signings? Yeah, quite possibly. It would seem to make sense to get loan players in to make up the shortfall of players that we might sell. Of course, the problem is you don't want too many loan players, because should we come up, then we've got the problem of having to turn those loans into permanent signings or getting other players as permanent signings. So that's going to be interesting, and I think we're going to make use of that. The fact that we're allowed more than 5 players to come on loan, I think is going to be an area that's going to be quite interesting. So Nuno talked confidently. He talked about the challenge ahead, that we all know what to do, the expectation, and he talked an awful lot about the fans, and Skull asked him what did he think was the one changing factor in our success from January onwards, and he could have said, he alluded to, the rebalancing of the squad very briefly. He alluded to 1 or 2 other things, but he also very heavily suggested that it was the London Stadium and the fan base. Good selling point there, Nuno. You know what you're doing, trying to boost the sale of season tickets. He said the fan base got on board and were behind the team, and on the whole, we were. We supported the team quite well at the London Stadium, and always supported the team really well away as well. So it's going to be a big factor. So a 60% renewal rate already suggests that we're well on our way to, we're not going to fill it, we're not going to fill the stadium, but if we get up to something like 80% capacity, I think that's doing really, really well. 80% capacity is going to be 50,000 fans, give or take, which for the London Stadium will be most welcome. It won't feel as empty as we're all fearing. So I'm looking forward to next season. I know it sounds weird, I know it sounds daft, looking forward to playing in the Championship, but we start off well, we start getting wins and playing well. We are favourites, and I'm glad that we are. So interesting interview about the future, interesting interview about the ambition, but very interesting that 60% of the fan base have already renewed their season tickets, and the hope is if we get to 80%, I think West Ham United will count themselves lucky, having had fans as loyal as we are.